This is your WWE Worlds Collide preview and predictions video here on the official Wrestle News 365 YouTube channel. Worlds Collide is a bit of a new phenomenon when it comes to WWE and NXT. Previously, it was a sort of a tournament or an interbrand tournament featuring wrestlers from the NXT, NXT UK and 205 Live brands when they were completely separate. This was later adopted into a network series that aired last year, I believe around, was it around April, I believe last year it aired. This year it's really taken on a world of its own, where it's not just a tournament that might feature loosely on the network or anything like that. It's got some real importance to it. It's an event all to itself. It's going to be held in the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Obviously everyone's going to be there, with it being Royal Rumble weekend. But the main premise of this is that it's NXT versus NXT UK. So every match is interpromotional in that way, and we're getting to see some quote-unquote dream matches. I know that's caused a lot of controversy on social media as whether they're dream matches or not. But we're going to see NXT versus NXT UK, and we're going to see some really fun matches here on the show. So I'm really looking forward to it. The card looks great. As I mentioned, it's in Houston, Texas, in the Toyota Center. Obviously, WWE are taking over Houston this weekend, with it being Royal Rumble weekend. We had SmackDown in the Toyota Center last night. We're going to have Worlds Collide here in the Toyota Center tonight. Obviously, Sunday we've got the Royal Rumble in Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas. And then, of course, we're going to have Monday Night Raw in the Toyota Center as well. So it's a busy weekend, jam-packed full of wrestling. It now appears that with these big four events, the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and of course WrestleMania, WWE well and truly takes over if you pardon the pun there, with it being NXT. But let's get into the matches. So on the pre-show, we'll have a pre-show tonight. It's not a full WWE pre-show where it's 2 hours or 1 hour. Usually these pre-shows are very short and quick. So I believe it'll be about half an hour long. Maybe it will be an hour, but I think it'll be about half an hour. And on the pre-show, we have Mia Yim from NXT going up against Kaylee Ray from NXT UK, of course, the NXT UK Women's Champion. Bit of a backstory here is that, of course, when they were having the War Games ladder matches on NXT back in November, around just before Survivor Series weekend, they had those ladder matches where the winner would get the person advantage when it came to War Games, and it was Mia Yim in the match for her team. Of course, and it had, I think, was it Io Shirai representing Team Shayna Baszler in a ladder match. Tremendous ladder match as well. Really enjoyed that match. Wasn't the biggest Mia Yim fan until that match. I remember she had the match against Shayna Baszler on one of the takeovers previously, and I just didn't see what the fuss was all about when it came to Mia Yim. For me, the match was slow. I didn't understand her character. Was it HBIC? It just didn't work for me. It just wasn't for me. But this ladder match really, I think, set her up and set her apart. It really showed her grit, her determination, her guts. And the finisher of that match was Kaylee Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champion, comes out of nowhere, is revealed to be the final member on Team Shayna Baszler, pushes Mia Yim off the ladder, through another ladder at ringside. I mean, just a brutal bump that Mia Yim took. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Not only was it a great ladder match, but the bump itself was absolutely sick. So they're paying off that story here, because, I mean, realistically, when else are they going to pay off that story? I can't imagine a scenario where their two paths are going to cross again, so it makes sense to pay off that story here. So Mia Yim goes up against Kaylee Ray. I don't see Mia Yim winning this one. I think if you're going to keep Kaylee Ray's momentum going, of course, she's the champion as well. You have to always protect your champion. So it doesn't, for me, make any sense to see her lose. I don't expect to see her losing this one. She retained her title a couple of weeks ago at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2. So I don't envisage her losing on the pre-show here. So I'm going to go with Kaylee Ray on this one. The match itself, I've got huge expectations of, but it's a pre-show match. They're usually in and out pretty quickly, just to keep the crowd on their toes and set them up for the pay-per-view itself. So the first match, obviously this isn't going to be the exact match order. They don't release that, but this is what I'm assuming the match order will be. we've got the Fatal 4-Way match for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Got champion Angel Garza from NXT defending against Isaiah Swerve Scott from NXT, Jordan Devlin from NXT UK, and Travis Banks from NXT UK. Now, this, in terms of the prediction, I'll get this out of the way quite quickly. I'm going to go with Angel Garza retaining. I don't see them moving the NXT Cruiserweight Championship off of Garza so quickly after winning it, and I certainly don't see them moving it to the NXT UK brand, but I think that would be really fun if they did. I would love to see someone like Jordan Devlin get a run with the NXT Cruiserweight Championship and defend it on both NXT and NXT UK, and then of course on 205 Live, however long 205 Live does remain to be a thing. You look at his match he had with Tyler Bate at TakeOver Blackpool a couple of weeks ago. I mean, just an absolute show stealer, phenomenal match. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He is very Finn Balor-esque. Of course, Finn Balor did train Jordan Devlin, and you can tell by their movements, their mannerisms, even their body shape is scarily similar. But I don't envisage Angel Garza losing the title anytime soon anyway. NXT doesn't tend to. I say doesn't tend to because there are outliers. You think of Sami Zayn with the NXT Championship, but NXT doesn't tend to hotshot title changes so quickly after winning them unless there's a deeper story to be told. So I don't see Angel Garza losing it. I think the match itself is going to be great. Obviously, it's a Cruiserweight Championship match, so there's going to be high spots galore, but then that's professional wrestling, isn't nowadays? You know, I remember back in the day, a cruiserweight match would mean dives and high spots. That tends to be every match now, doesn't it? But the match itself should be great. Like I said, I would be really interested to see if they did move the NXT Cruiserweight Championship across the NXT brands. But I just don't see it. I don't see that happening anytime soon, and I don't think this would be the show to change the NXT Cruiserweight Championship, so I'm going to go with Angel Garza winning on that one. Next, we have Finn Balor going up against Ilya Dragunov. This is definitely a sleeper match for the show. This could really, really be a show stealer. If you haven't seen much of Dragunov's matches, go back and watch them on NXT. He's a really interesting and compelling character. Something real different. He has a great look. He obviously wears the contact lenses to have like the red eyes. He's just different, and different's great nowadays, you know. In an era where we really have seen it all, it feels like at this point, it would appear that we've seen it all. Seeing something different in terms of the presentation, I mean, look what it's done for The Fiend. So having someone like Dragunov who's got a different look, his matches are really good, his matches are really hard hitting, he's not the biggest in terms of stature, but he can really go, and he's had some phenomenal matches. He had the match against Cesaro on the NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff show. That was, if it wasn't for Walter and Tyler Bate being on that show, that would have been the match of the show for me. So he can definitely mix it up and go. I think this will be a great spotlight for him, and I really do think that this is going to be a special match. In terms of who I think is going to win, I don't see Dragunov beating Finn Balor at all, unless the only way around that would be, of course, if they want to further the feud between Balor and Johnny Gargano, and Johnny Gargano gets involved at any point, and it's a bit of a, you know, the David versus Goliath upset. No one expects Dragunov to win, but Gargano comes out and costs Balor the match. I don't see it. From what I believe, Finn Balor hasn't been pinned since he's come back to NXT. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. But I just don't see Finn Balor, especially the star that he is, putting over Dragunov on. I know it's a big stage, and obviously it's in the Toyota Center, but on this stage, you know, I think the match itself, just the performance that Dragunov will put in, will be an absolute star-making moment for him. You know, expect more to come from him. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually, sometime down the line, he makes the move over to the States and appears on the NXT brand on the USA Network, as opposed to just the NXT UK brand. But I'm going for Finn Balor on this one. I think it's a pretty obvious one, but the match itself is one I'm really, really looking forward to. I think this should be really strong. Then we have what some people have described as a dream match. We have DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa reuniting to go up against the Mustache Mountain in Trent Seven and Tyler Bate. Now, I'm really, really looking forward to this one. I'll probably say this about every single match on the show, but I am really looking forward to this one. DIY, it's always great to see them back together. It it does almost, I don't want to say cheapen, because since they're both baby faces now in this professional wrestling, but Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa nearly killed themselves when in their feud against each other for over 12 months. It felt like 18 months, however long that feud went on for. I mean, they swore bloody murder. Ciampa got Gargano removed from NXT. Ciampa stole the NXT Championship, all of that stuff, and they had unsanctioned matches and, making them tap out with the knee brace, hitting them with crutches. To see them back together, for me, and I know, longevity in terms of storytelling just doesn't happen in professional wrestling, but to see them back together, I don't know. They had that really nice moment where Gargano won the NXT Championship and they hugged it out, and I guess that was the end of whatever feud would have been there, and, the real life best friends were back together. But I don't know. There's something in me just goes, oh, does that feel different? Is that wasted? I don't know. But that's just something that plays in my mind. Of course, it is great to see them back together. Their matches they had when they were a tag team are legendary in NXT folklore. You think of the matches they had against the Revival, AOP, all of that lovely stuff. It was tremendous, and they are tremendous, both singles wrestlers and as a tag team. Mustache Mountain as well. You think of the matches they had with the Undisputed Era. Tyler Bate recently has been on the biggest role of his life in terms of the matches he's been putting on. I mentioned earlier about the match he had with Jordan Devlin at TakeOver Blackpool. The match he had against Walter in the main event, that 40-minute classic, and TakeOver Cardiff. Tyler Bate is still so young. He's still in his very early 20s, and he's just tremendous. If he can stay healthy for a long period of time, he can go to the NXT brand and beyond. I'm surprised he's still on the NXT UK brand. I think it's just a case of he still lives in the UK. We have seen him appear occasionally over on NXT, but I would expect he's going to be the next one after Pete Dunne that goes to the NXT brand full time and then eventually goes to the main roster. But he's still so young. He's still got so much time ahead of him when it comes to his career, so there's no need to rush him to NXT, Raw and SmackDown or anything like that anytime soon. In terms of the match, who's going to win? The thing you have to think of, I suppose, when it comes to these predictions is that not only do you have to think about who's going to win, but you also have to think how it stacks up. You don't have a whole card where NXT just sweeps the board. I would be surprised if Mustache Mountain won this one. I think it just feels like Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are the biggest stars here. Again, unless there are shenanigans when it comes to people getting involved, like Finn Balor could cost Johnny Gargano and Ciampa or something like that. But that doesn't feel very NXT. They do tell that kind of stories when it comes to their TV show, but when it comes to pay-per-view matches, they kind of like to have them pretty clean when it comes to the finishes. So I'm going to go with DIY on this one. I think they'll pull this one out the bag. I would be stunned if it goes any less than 30 minutes. I think this is going to be a 30-minute plus match. I think they're going to have lots of time. They're going to tell a hell of a story. Seeing the likes of Tyler Bate tie it up with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa is going to be tremendous. But that's not to discount Trent Seven. He's kind of the forgotten part of the Mustache Mountain team. I still think somewhere down the line he could be a tremendous heel when he turns on Tyler Bate, because Tyler Bate gets all the attention when it comes to the Mustache Mountain. I think that's a tremendous story they could tell there. But in terms of who I think is going to win, I think DIY pulls out this one, the winner, but it should be a tremendous match. Now, on to probably the two most talked about matches when it comes to this show. First, what do I actually call it? The NXT. There's the thing, isn't it? There was a thing when Becky Lynch, I should preface this, when she was on WWE Backstage this week, and she spoke about how she didn't want to have gender names when it came to the women's division. She wanted them to be like the Raw Women's, not the Raw Women's Champion, the Raw Champion, I guess it would be, or the WWE Champion, or something like that, where they wouldn't be the women's division, it would be a division. So they're on an even playing field with the men. Now that's a story to tell later in a later video, but it was then announced that the NXT Women's Championship had been renamed to just the NXT Championship. Now it's still listed here on Wikipedia and online that it's the NXT Women's Championship. I'm sure we'll find out tonight what they're calling it going forward. But for this reference in this video, we'll call it the Women's Championship. I have no issue calling it the NXT Championship. It doesn't bother me. People going, oh, how can you tell the difference? Well, the competitors in the match kind of give it away. But we'll find out where they're going with it, I would assume, tonight. But the match itself for the NXT blank championship, we have NXT champion Rhea Ripley defending against Toni Storm. Now, obviously, these were the first two NXT UK Women's Champion, and now Rhea Ripley, of course, moved over to NXT in the States. Toni Storm still appears on the NXT UK brand. Many assumed when Toni Storm lost the championship at NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff last year, she was on her way to NXT in the States. It wasn't the case. We've seen her very, very infrequently. A bit more recently when it comes to the NXT TV. But this match should be a tremendous women's match. Or tremendous match, not just a women's match, just a match. They've had great matches before. Their match at TakeOver Blackpool 1 was tremendous. They've got great chemistry. They've known each other for years. A lot of people are speculating whether Toni Storm could actually come out the winner on this one. And this will get into my prediction of it. I just don't see that happening. Rhea Ripley only just won the championship off Shayna Baszler, who held the championship for, was it like a year or something like that, maybe even longer. So I don't expect her to lose the championship so soon. It wouldn't make any sense to take the title off of this soon, especially when she's got the TakeOver match against Bianca Belair coming up at NXT TakeOver Portland in a couple of weeks. So I don't see Rhea Ripley dropping the title anytime soon. Of course, they could drop it, and then that turns into a triple threat match at TakeOver Portland. But I just don't see the direction that they're going in. I hope that this is the beginning of Toni Storm moving over to the NXT brand in the States full time, because I don't see what else she can do or is left to do on the NXT UK brand. She's obviously been the champion there. She wasn't successful in regaining it at TakeOver Blackpool 2. So what's there left for her to do? She's too good just to mingle around in their women's division on that brand. So I don't see anything for her left to do on the NXT UK brand. I think this match would be a good way to transition her over to the States. She doesn't need to win this match, of course, though. She can lose, and this could be the slow descent into madness of a Toni Storm heel turn, or just a great way to introduce her to the American audience that might not have seen her work already. But in terms of who I think is going to win, I think Rhea Ripley's going to win this one. I think that sets up her feud with Bianca Belair nicely at NXT TakeOver Portland, where I also think she'll retain. And I'm praying that sets up a match against Io Shirai for the NXT Championship on WrestleMania weekend, which I think should be the main event of that takeover, the first women's main event since Sasha Banks and Bayley when they had their Iron Man match. That would be the great story to tell there, and that's when I'd have Rhea drop the belt to Io Shirai, who could become finally a champion in NXT. So I think Rhea Ripley leaves this one as the winner. Finally, your main event, what this show has been built around. We have Imperium, which is the NXT UK champion Walter, Fabian Eichner, Marcel Barthel, and Alexander Wolf going up against the Undisputed Era, the NXT champion Adam Cole, NXT Tag Team champions Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong after Strong lost his North American Championship against Keith Lee this past week on NXT. This is a really tough one to call, isn't it? My logic in my head would say the Undisputed Era would walk out this one victorious, but I think there's a longer story they're telling here, and I'll tell you what it is. Roderick Strong, of course, lost the North American Championship this week on NXT. The prophecy, the golden prophecy that they were telling for so long on NXT, wasn't it, that all the members of the Undisputed Era were going to hold gold, and they did. They accomplished it for a while. Now, it would make sense, or the logical sense, that now the prophecy has been broken, that they're moving somewhere else when it comes to the group. Someone mentioned to me on social media earlier that maybe with Strong losing, he's seen as the weak link when it comes to the Undisputed Era. So in this match, he could take the pinfall in this match. Walter, somehow, after this absolute classic and mayhem match that they put on here, eventually Walter gets the pinfall on Roderick Strong, and this sets up the tension within the group. Not only did you destroy the prophecy, or the golden prophecy, the undisputed prophecy, whatever they want to call it, but also you lost when it came to bragging rights, shall we say, for the NXT brand. You also lost at Worlds Collide. You took the pinfall at Worlds Collide, which leads to the Undisputed Era turning on Roderick Strong, which sets up a match of Adam Cole versus Roderick Strong somewhere down the line. That would be something I would really like to see. Whether or not it's where they go with it, I personally, I'm not sure I'd want to see the Undisputed Era broken up. I think they're great as they are. They don't need to be split up. They don't need to hold all the championships. Once they don't hold the championships, they can just go on to Raw or SmackDown. I think that would be a great addition to the main roster. There's certainly a lot of factions building when it comes to the main roster currently. But could you imagine on Raw, you've got the 4 disciples and Monday Night Messiah when it comes to Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy, and AOP, going up against the Undisputed Era, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong. I mean, that'd be tremendous television, wouldn't it? But I'm going to go with Imperium winning this one, and purely because I think that's where they're going with the Roderick Strong, Adam Cole thing. It might be completely off base, but also I think it's important if they want to continue to elevate the NXT UK brand, which it would appear that they're trying to do, considering you had the likes of the Grizzled Young Veterans get the win over Undisputed Era this week on NXT TV. They're trying to bring up that this brand is equivalent in stature to NXT. What better way to elevate the NXT UK brand and bring it up to the stature of the USA NXT brand than having NXT's champion and their strongest faction go over in the main event? So that's what I think. But it's not just about what I think, it's about what you think as well. What are your predictions for tonight's show? Which matches are you most looking forward to? Let me know in the comments section below. And I will speak to you again very, very soon.